Namaste children. Today in our English class we shall learn a prose from our main reader Flamingo. Children, now look at the clips and tell me what do you understand. Can you predict something? Yes, it describes the spring season. As you all know, the word spring denotes happiness, enjoyment and a time of bliss. But do you think the word spring has any connection with the life of children? No doubt about it. The stage of childhood is not just the stage of innocence, but also the possessor of the above mentioned qualities like happiness, enjoyment, and so on. It is a gift and treasure for each and every child in the world to get showers of happiness, love, and affection, and more so the freedom. It is also the stage for gaining skill and knowledge. But it is thoroughly tragic to quote that there are children in the world who are condemned to poverty and a life of exploitation. So, no spring season, no space for happiness, as they had to carry the burden and responsibility of their entire family due to the streamline of poverty. Yes, these children have lost their spring. That is how our today's chapter, children, Lost Spring, happens to be the second lesson in your reader written by Anis Jung. Now going with the introduction of Anis Jung. Anis Jung, born in Hyderabad, was an author, journalist and a columnist for major newspapers in India and abroad. Unveiling India 1987 is her most noted work as an author. Through this work, she explored the life of Indian women, particularly Muslim ladies. It is a travel diary focusing on interviews with women. And the lesson from your reader is a short piece of writing from her book titled Lost Spring: Stories of Stolen Childhood. Here she analyzes the grinding poverty and traditions which condemn the children of poor to a life of exploitation. There are two stories in connection with the lesson, children. And the first story is Sometimes I Find a Rupee in the Garbage. And today in our class we are going to deal only with this first lesson. Now we will move into the lesson, children. Every morning, the writer sees a young ragpicker boy who visits the garbage dump near her house and searches for gold in it. The writer says that he searches for gold, ironically, because although the garbage dump is full of useless, thrown away things, still he shuffles it so minutely as if he will get something as precious as gold from it. The boy's name is Sahib. His home in Dhaka was in the middle of lush green fields. They had left it many years ago and he does not remember it anymore. His mother had told him that there were many storms which destroyed their house and fields. So, they left home and shifted to the cities in search of gold. The writer again says, looking for gold in the big city, where the word gold refers to something precious which was not available in their hometown. Things like shoes, money, bags, etc. for the children, and food, clothing, shelter as means of survival for their parents. The boy searches for such precious things in the garbage dumps. One day, the writer asks questions to Sahib and asks him the reason for shuffling through the garbage. Sahib replies to the writer that he has nothing to do other than rag picking. The writer immediately suggests that he should go to school. She realizes that her advice is meaningless for the poor boy. He replies that there are no schools in the area where Sahib lives. He also assures her that he will go to school when one is built near his house. The writer asks him jokingly that if she opened a school, would he attend it? Sahib says that he would join the writer's school, and after a few days, he runs up to the writer to ask whether her school is ready. The writer replied that it takes a lot of time to build a school. She felt ashamed at making a false promise. She had said this as a joke and had never intended to open a school, so she felt ashamed of herself. Sahib was not hurt because he was used to such false promises as they existed in large numbers in his empty world. He was surrounded by such false promises made by everyone around him. His world was empty as no promise made to Sahib was ever fulfilled. The writer had known Sahib for few months when she asked him his name. He in turn replied as if he was making an announcement that his name was Sahib-e-Alam. The writer thought that the boy did not know the meaning of his name, and if he came to know that his name meant Lord of the Universe, he would not be able to believe it. His name was opposite to his life. He went around the streets with a group of friends. It was like an army of boys who did not wear any footwear. They appeared in the morning like morning birds and disappeared at noon. The writer could recognize all of them as she had been seeing them for the past few months. The writer asked one of them that why was he not wearing any footwear? The boy simply replied that his mother did not get them down from the shelf. As they were beyond his reach, he did not wear them. Another boy, who was wearing a different shoe in each foot, said that even if his mother would have given him the footwear, he would have thrown it away. He meant that the boy was not wearing footwear because he did not want to wear one. The writer asked the second boy the reason for wearing a different shoe in each foot. He did not reply and shuffled his feet as he tried to hide the shoes. A third boy spoke that he was eager to get a pair of shoes as he had never owned one all his life. The writer takes the example of shoes to highlight the condition of these boys. They searched the garbage dumps looking for such precious things. She further tells us that as she traveled across the country, she had seen many children walking barefoot in the cities as well as the villages. They reasoned that they were barefoot not due to lack of money to buy footwear, but being barefoot was a tradition for them. The writer wondered and concluded that the reason of it being a tradition was a mere excuse to hide the fact, but they were so poor that they could not afford the footwear. The writer narrates a story told to her by a man from Udupi. Udupi is a town in Karnataka. When the man was a young boy, he would walk to school. On the way, he would cross a temple where his father worked as a priest. He would stop at a temple and pray to God to bless him with a pair of shoes. After 30 years, the writer visited the town and the temple. Now the place was nearly empty. The new priest lived in the backyard of the temple. Plastic chairs in red and white color were kept there. A young boy came running. He was wearing grey colored school uniform, socks and shoes. He had a school bag hung on his shoulders. He threw it on the bed and ran away. The writer wants to say that the financial position of the priest at the temple had improved over the last 30 years. Now, he could afford shoes for his children. This shows that the underprivileged value anything that they get because they have been longing for it. Anis Jung then describes the area where these rag-picker boys lived. Simapuri, located on the outskirts of Delhi, was very different from the capital of the country. In 1971, When these rag pickers had migrated from Bangladesh, the area had been a wasteland. Simapuri was still a wasteland, but now it was not empty as almost 10,000 rag pickers lived there in structures made of mud with roofs made of thin sheets of tin or plastic material called tarpaulin. There was no sewage, drainage, or running water facility in Simapuri. They lived in unhygienic conditions. It was a piece of wasteland where the garbage of the city was collected. These people had started living there illegally. They have occupied the area without government permission or ownership. The politicians of the area have provided them ration cards and voter ID cards. They get grocery for their family through these ration cards, and in turn, they cast their votes in favor of the politician who had helped them. The writer asked a group of women who were wearing torn saris that why did they leave their homes in Dhaka? They replied that if they were able to satisfy the hunger of their families and sleep well at night, they were happier to live in Simapuri than their fields in Dhaka, which were ruined and gave them no food. These people have traveled in search of food, and wherever they found it, they set up temporary houses and started living there. Their children kept on growing there, and gradually they also started helping their parents in seeking means of survival. For those who lived in Simapuri, the means of survival was rag picking. As they had been doing it for many years, they became trained at rag picking and did it very well. For the rag pickers, the garbage was as precious as gold. These families searched the garbage dumps and got things which they sold to fund their food. They gathered torn sheets or damaged sheets which were used to cover the roof of their homes. These did not cover them well, but still provided them with some protection. For the children, the garbage dumps were more than a means of survival. Sahib was happy to say that sometimes he found a rupee and even a 10 rupee note in the dump. As one often finds even a silver coin in the garbage dump, he kept on searching, hoping to find more. For the children, the garbage dump was a means of fulfilling their dreams, although partially, while for the parents it was a means of great survival by providing the basics like food, clothing, and shelter. One winter morning, the writer saw Sahib standing by the fence of a club. He was watching a tennis game being played by two young men. Sahib liked the game but could not play it. He told the writer that if he went inside the club when it would be closed, he was allowed to take swings by the guard there. The writer saw that Sahib was also wearing tennis shoes. They did not like appropriate with the dress which was worn out and had faded. He told the writer in an attempt to justify himself that someone gave him the shoes. She, however, figured out that he had got them from a garbage dump. They must have been a thrown out piece by a boy from a rich family, as he did not want to wear them anymore. Probably they had a hole or two in them, due to which he did not want to wear them. On the contrary, Sahib was not bothered by this fact and had no problem wearing them, as he could not afford anything better than that. He walked barefoot, and to wear a shoe, even with a hole, was like a dream for him. Sahib's dream of wearing shoes had been partially fulfilled, but his desire to play tennis would never be fulfilled. Another morning, the writer met Sahib, who was on his way to the milk booth. He was holding a steel container. He told the writer that he had got a job at the nearby tea stall. He would earn 800 rupees a month and get meals too. The writer in turn asked him if he liked the job, as she could see that he had lost the carefree look. as now Sahib was working for someone else and was carrying his own master's container, not Sahib's. He was burdened with responsibility there. Earlier, he was a rag picker. As a rag picker, Sahib would carry his own bag, but whereas not his master. Now Sahib was no longer his own master. With that, the lesson ends. Children, can you guess the theme of the lesson? It is a global phenomenon. Yes, child labor. Today's generation is tomorrow's progression. A child is meant to learn, not to earn. Children should not work in fields, but on dreams. The grinding poverty and traditions compel children to work in the most inhuman and hostile conditions. What is the role in that? With that great question in our mind, let us take a resolution not to give any space for the child labor in our period. So, let us accept to support and protect the pillars of our nation through this lesson. Thank you, children.